Hello and welcome to my fireside chat about social medias. If this is your first video of mine, I recommend playing this in the background. This will be a lot less edited than my regular long-form content. That said, enjoy the video and let's get started into the topic. Social media is bad. Do I really need to explain any more than that? Well, yes, actually I do. Because as a whole, social media is just one giant addiction ring when you think about it, really. The entire point of social media is just to keep you coming back with even more engagement, and just keep you coming so they can make all the money off of you from advertisers. It's not exactly the best kept secret that social media is not really good for your health and has made people, well, incredibly dependent on it. It's also made people very opinionated and very, well, stupid to say the least. People are quick to defend their thing without actually understanding the point, as my Blue Sky video demonstrated. Ironic how a video primarily meant to be, satirical in nature, and the fact that I also hated on both sides, both Twitter and Blue Sky, were not exempt from my criticisms. People still blindly hated on it, thus proving my point that people don't fucking watch the video. They just blindly hated on it without understanding it. Those that did watch the video actually were, well, reasonable. I'm not mad that people disliked it. I'm mad that people didn't watch the video and didn't properly form a good opinion on it. Because as a whole, that just shows that you are a very stupid person and very easily fall into your biases. And that's honestly the biggest problem with social media right now. Everyone is so stuck up their own ass with their own biases that no one wants to have an honest discussion anymore. But it wasn't always like this was the thing. Twitter as a whole actually used to be a very decent site before it became a cesspit when Tumblr basically shot itself in the foot. Yeah, believe it or not, Tumblr was the place where all the crazies went. Now it's kinda just, well, a shell of its former self due to the fact that Tumblr basically burned away any trust that they had by doing a completely stupid decision. And now they're addicted to Twitter.com instead. Or as it's called X now, but I'm never gonna call it that. People tout Blue Sky as the next best thing when in reality it's just going to end up being another failure. Remember shit like Odyssey, for example? Yeah, you probably don't remember Odyssey. Odyssey was touted as the next best YouTube alternative. It's gonna give some YouTube some real competition. And then it died out not too long after. Same goes for something like Rumble. I don't imagine it staying very long. Because that's kind of the problem with a lot of these social media places. They tend to have their moment in the sunlight and then they just kind of burn out real quick. That said, I do want these sites to exist. I want competition to exist because as a whole, monopolies just breed complacency, and complacency leads to mediocrity. And mediocrity is a quick way to kill every good thing you have going for you. Problem often comes down to how these social media sites often fall under a extreme bias. If Blue Sky didn't have an extreme left-wing bias, I think it would be fine. But that's the problem, is that it has an extremely left-wing bias. So at the end of the day, it's not old Twitter, it's basically pre-Elon Musk Twitter. And for some, they would say that's a better alternative. I'd say that's not changing much. I'm not defending Elon by any means. I have my own gripes with him. I think he's very opinionated for all the wrong reasons and sometimes needs to learn to shut his mouth. Then again, I could say that about literally everyone who uses Twitter. Sometimes you need to think before you fucking tweet, you moron. Probably one of the biggest examples of this was a recent event that I'm sure a lot of you probably have burned in your mind, was the recent assassination attempt on current president-elect Donald J. Trump. Now imagine if this was Biden, for instance, had an assassination attempt on his life. These people would be reeing because they're hypocrites. They cheer for one guy's death, but yet if it happens to one of theirs, they cry insurrection, they cry everything else. Because we can't have a set standard, we have to play sides. We can't have anything be objective anymore. No matter how you look at it, a former sitting president getting an assassination attempt on his life is not exactly a good thing, no matter where you stand on the political spectrum. After all, it could happen to your guy if this is the standard. Although one good thing that came out from this event was putting a lot of people on my shit list. Because yeah, a lot of people revealed themselves to be absolute fucking scumbags from this event. A few notable examples being Jack Black's bandmate, Tricky the VTuber, and of course, who could forget Dev, aka Short Fat Otaku. Because yeah, they kinda went full on mask off and revealed what kind of person they really are. As a whole, I think political bias needs to be put aside for these kind of things, but we can't have that because Twitter is a cesspit. In fact, I would argue social media as a whole was a mistake. Social media just breeds, well, bias. I mean, especially with something like Instagram, you have all these Instagram models and you have all these fake influencers. Let me let you in on a little secret. Most influencers are faking it. You can rent a Lamborghini, you can rent mansions. They are basically just tricking you into thinking they are, successful. It's a fake it till you make it scam, really. And frankly, not a lot of people are aware of that. And that's the biggest problem. People get sucked into this sort of thing and, well, feel bad about themselves. And when they feel bad about themselves, they straight up have a lot of, mental problems. And thus people with a certain type of charisma could abuse that fact and basically scam you from it. And, by the way, this is on both sides. I don't like someone like Andrew Tate. I think he's an absolute fucking scumbag that says some alright things, but ultimately is just not a good person. He's basically just an internet troll. Just ignore him. Do not give him what he wants. But that's the thing. People are addicted to engagement. They will constantly reply to angry posts no matter what. People say all the time, oh, rage baiting doesn't work. Well, that's the thing. As I always say, you're not the target audience. If rage baiting doesn't affect you in any way, shape, or form, you're not the target audience. People need to learn this lesson very quickly, but sadly, we do not live in a very smart society. We live in one that's very emotionally driven, and people are, quick to defend the thing they like, or, make the shittiest opinion known to man just because it gets views. Or people are quick to dismiss something because they don't personally agree with it, and they haven't seen the video. And yes, I can see the analytics. I can see how far people watch that video. I fucking know. Don't try to pull any funny business with me. But that's the thing, especially with Blue Sky. I don't think it's gonna last very long. I think maybe it'll last 5 years tops. And that's me being extremely generous. Because as a whole, I think it's just going to fizzle out and die. There was one comment that brought up a good point with saying artists will move there. But here's the thing about that commenter. I genuinely don't know how long it's gonna be before Blue Sky does the same thing. A lot of companies say, oh, we're not going to do X, Y, and Z, and then they later bait and switch it and then do it anyway. Sure, Blue Sky might not take the AI money, but who knows till they get desperate enough to actually take the money. These websites aren't exactly cheap, Which is kind of the problem, is that a lot of these websites operate on a loss. YouTube especially operates on a huge loss. Although, granted, that could be because other reasons, such as Google not really being in a very good financial state right now and trying to juggle too many things, but that's a different story for another day. People don't tend to want to leave their social media bubbles is the thing. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, a lot of people migrated to Mastodon. And some people still use Mastodon. Except then they realized Mastodon is not exactly like Twitter, therefore they left. That's why people are moving to Blue Sky, because it's almost exactly like Twitter. And that's my problem, is that it's too much like Twitter. It's basically a Twitter clone that's going to probably make the same mistakes as Twitter, and thus people are just going to go right back to Twitter, because that's how these things tend to go. Like I said, no one talks about Odyssey anymore. And I genuinely think this is going to be a continuous trend, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Blue Sky will actually be successful. Maybe it'll actually clean up its act and, be a decent social media site one day. Probably not, but, that's how it is. Anyways, thanks for stopping by for my fireside chat, and hopefully maybe you stick around for the longer videos. Anyways, goodbye.